Rabi-Ribi is a go. Alright, welcome to Rabi-Ribi. This is a game where you are a bunny that became a bunny girl. And now you have to go and save your master's sister, and also the island you're on, and maybe the world while you're at it, who knows. This category is 100%. And to do that we will need, well, the goal of this category is to get 100% items, indicated by a little counter at the top of the screen right now. To get 100% items, we will need to do pretty much everything in this game, so don't worry, you'll get to see a lot. There's a lot in terms of movement going on right off the bat. Let's try to break it down. First up, I am jumping up and down everywhere. This is called quick dropping. You press down and jump in the air, and you go down very fast, but you also go horizontally just a little bit faster, which is great because we want to go faster. Here's the first boss. This speedrun is done on the casual difficulty, the easiest difficulty in this game, which makes bosses go down very quickly. Here's the carrot bombs. If you ever played Metroid before, these are basically your morph ball bombs. They blow up blocks for you and do damage. You can level them up and make them stronger and faster. We will be trying to do that because we need to use them a lot. What I just do here is a launch. Basically you have a wall jump in this game, and if you do a quick drop before you do the wall jump, you just go flying. Coming up on Ribbon, bit of a hard boss. Perfect. So I did that fight in a very specific way, which caused me to be in the wrong room after finishing the fight. And that saves just a few seconds, and those few seconds are very important because this is a speedrun. By finishing that fight, we get our secondary weapon, Ribbon. She will shoot some pellets for us, and also charge her shots up. Here's a mini-boss. Messed it up a little bit, but that was a mini-boss. And you can kind of see at the bottom of the screen, things are happening. And we're getting hammer upgrades. We want very specific upgrades for very specific bosses early on, so we will be hitting a lot of enemies with our hammer. You can also do the same with Ribbon, level her up. That's a bit less important. The number one thing is getting the hammer upgrades. I messed up the wall kick there. Coming up is Ashery 1, the hardest prologue boss, so I will not say anything. Is that enough? It is. Awesome. So that strat is very difficult, and we need to get down drill in a specific part of the fight, and basically there's a lot going on right there. That strat in particular manages to give us all of the time great RNG. Usually our old strat for that boss, we could get 6 different attacks, and a lot of them were just not great. But this new strat for some reason just always gives us nice RNG. And so we're finishing up the prologue now, heading to Rabi-Ribi Town, which is our main game hub. Town members will be here, there's a shop here. Basically you can spend your money here, you can go to the next chapter. And speaking of going to the next chapter, we are now in chapter 1. Alright. A little cutscene out here. The little cutscene outside here will give us a cake and a donut. Recovery items that we will be using in about an hour. Here's the shop. We're not going in right now. We'll be going here later. First up, we gotta go fight Kotri. We will be doing a pretty easy strat on her to skip her defense boost phase, which I'll explain right after. here's Kotri. Nice. So, she went down really, really fast, but if you don't get her down just right, she can trigger her defense boost phase. What that is a lot of boss have an HP threshold at which they will put on the buff defense boost. And this buff is your absolute worst nightmare. It will make pretty much all of your attacks like negligible for the boss. They will not do a lot of damage. So as much as possible, you definitely want to avoid that buff. And so you want to fight the bosses in specific ways to avoid those HP thresholds. Coming up on Rita now. That was a great quick kill. So Rita also has a quick kill, but we don't skip a defense boost phase on her, we skip a cut-in. Most bosses have what is called a cut-in. If you played Toho before, I don't think I need to explain it to you, but most bosses have like this one special attack, and in a lot of cases, this attack makes the boss go to an unfavorable position for us. So we definitely want to avoid that as much as possible. This is a cut-in. I messed up my strat there, so I had to do a little bit of a quickly planned backup. But hey, you got to see what a cut-in attack was like. Here's chapter 2. We're gonna fight Alias 1, and hopefully we get good RNG. Nice. Not the greatest, but it'll absolutely do. So what we did there was called Alias Save Glitch. Also, here's a mini-boss, but what we did at the end of that boss fight was called Alias Save Glitch. Basically, for a frame after you beat the boss, the game thinks you are not in a boss before you start the cutscene. And during that one frame, you can, if you are standing in the right spot, you can actually trigger autosaves that are normally in the game world. And so that's what we did. And normally we're not supposed to be in this area. This is kind of like an intermission area between chapters. But we got the autosave after beating Alias 1 in this area, and so we can just reload the autosave and be in this area, and Alias 1 is down, and we can just kind of make our way to the Chapter 4 intermission boss, Alias 3. And by defeating her now, not only is she a little bit easier, but we will not have to enter Chapter 4 at all. And what I'm doing here is I'm just leveling up my carrot bombs so I can get some more, well, speed and damage, and now they are at max level. Here's Alias 3. There we go. That went pretty well. You definitely don't want to let Alias 3 go past her first attack, because she can just start doing a whole bunch of things that cost you a ton of time. So right after this, because we have Sasini and are in Chapter 2, well, first off, the first part of Alias, while I was leveling up my carrot bombs, the boss was invincible. I should mention that. But anyway, because we have Sasini and are in Chapter 2, we've unlocked the laboratory for long. So we're going to be making our way to that because there's a very important item in there. But first off, here's Bunny World. This item lets us attack in midair and also just kind of bounce off of enemies, which is fabulous. I want it. I love it. We don't really need it right now, but we will need it for a trick later on. So now we're entering the laboratory. There's a very important item in here. I'll say it when we get it. For now, this is just a nice resting period for my finger, because we don't really need to use ribbon in here. We'll be taking a couple of shortcuts like this one. And something I forgot to mention, we'll be trying to stay under, well, we were trying to stay under 5%, because at 5%, item 5% is what I mean, bosses get a big boost in levels, which means more HP, which means harder to kill bosses. The same thing happens at 10%, but basically we've been skipping a couple items so that we can stay under 5% for some early game bosses. But now, we'll be going above 5% with the sliding powder. This lets us slide, so we can kind of go in these like little tunnels over here. And we also go very fast if we slide and jump. Here's Mr. Big Box. That was Mr. Big Box. Here's some hard movement. Let's see if I can get it. Nice. Making it past that second laser before your invulnerability frames run out is quite hard. The number one property of slide, however, is not that you slide. Sliding makes you zip. So what we just did there was, I don't really know what we call it. An enemy bound zip, let's just call it that. Basically, if you are in a slide tunnel, oh, I'll explain that one later, but if you are in a slide tunnel and you hit an enemy with your slide attack, Arena will be forced to stand up, and if you stand up, your hitbox just kind of gets inside the wall, and when you're in a wall in this game, well, you go right, until you are no longer in a wall. There are plenty of ways to zip, and we will be showcasing a lot of them throughout this run. But for now, let's go to Coquatu. On the way, we'll be picking up wall jump. Also, I might have, like, I don't know if you saw that, but I went into a slide tunnel that was above the ground. You're not supposed to do that, but who cares about those pesky rules? So we just picked up wall jump. Right now that doesn't really do anything for us, but later on when we upgrade it, we'll have 3 wall jumps instead of the 2 that we currently have right now, which is the reverse wall jump and the wall kick. So Coquatu is kind of in like her own area. It's a bit annoying to like grab this. However, there is a peculiar thing about this area, which I will explain when we get to. For now, let's just get every single item in here. That was a super bounce, by the way. If you do a quick drop and then a bunny whirl, you just kind of go flying, because you have a ton of momentum. Here is the charge ring. Now our ribbon can have a second charge beyond the first charge. This is really strong and I really like it. Alright, so now we will be fighting Coquatu. Coquatu is a pretty simple boss. I guess we just hit her until she's dead. Sorry, I don't mean dead. I mean down for the count. This is an anime game, no one gets hurt. And now we're not going to go back. There's a little area at the end of this area. And normally you're not supposed to be able to access it until chapter 6. But I did just say there are zips in this game. So yeah. So that was a slide jump zip. The way it works is basically if you try to aim for a corner messed that up, sorry. Basically, you want Arena to hit the corner of, well, like, man, I don't know, there's a lot going on, sorry. You want Arena to hit a corner shortly after the apex of her slide jump, and that's going to make her zip if you do it just right. It's a lot harder than I'm making it sound, but it's the most common type of zip in this game. We're going to be using it a lot. And so now we're just in this area. We're in Chapter 2, and normally you should be in Chapter 6 when you're here. Not only that, but we're also under 10%. If you remember what I said, jeez, that was bad. Once we reach 10%, bosses will get a big boost of levels, and all of these are just like mini bosses. It's basically like a big boss rush of everything in the game. And so we try our best to stay under 10% items before we get here, because it makes everything in here go down very, very quickly. Here's the one item in this area. And here's Alias 4. This is the only place in the game where you can fight Alias 4. Sadly, she is too much of a pain, so we don't even want to let her attack. Alright, and now we can finally go shopping. Because the first time we shop, we get 3 attack ups, and this cutscene gives us an item, so now we're above 10%. We're also getting not a wall jump level 3, wall jump level 2, and bunny amulet level 2. Wall jump level 2 lets us use our wall jump 3 times, which is great, more wall jumps. Bunny amulet level 2 gives us an extra amulet, which I'll explain shortly because I don't think I've used it yet. If you've played this game before, you might have been wondering earlier why I didn't pick up this item. These are the Rabi slippers. They make you jump higher. The reason is we don't really need them up until now, because this is park climb. This is a very vertical part of the game. And here is the second item we got in the shop, Bunny Strike. The first item was Speed Boost, which just makes us walk a bit faster. Bunny Strike is a great movement option. You just kind of lunge after if you attack during a slide now. So it's a bit great for movement later on, but it's also a great attacking option because it does a lot of damage. Here's the amulet. You go invincible while using it, and you just do a bunch of damage to everything on the screen. So not only is it let me go down, thank you, it's great for clearing enemies, fighting bosses, and just surviving in general. Here's another zip. And that zip in particular is really great because now we're in a completely different area. This is actually Sky High Castle. We're no longer in Rabi-Ribi Park. And not only that, but we're in a great area of Sky High Castle to collect items. Because that zip puts us basically at the very bottom of Sky High Castle, which is an area that's normally pretty hard to get to. So we can just start from the bottom and send them from the middle, and just collect every item along the way. It's a great time save. Coming up is the first 5-tile zip. It's just a slide jump zip, however, you have to do it in a peculiar way. Let's see if I can get it. Oh, just very close. Now the sound's gonna be in the way, so let me get rid of him. This may be too close. Yeah. There we go. So 5 tiles are special types of slide jumps because you actually need a pause buffer to do it. You have to jump on the very first frame of a slide to get enough vertical momentum from the slide jump to actually make it up 5 tiles on your jump. 5 tiles is just like a tile as a unit of measurement in this game. Basically everything is like tiled, so you can see like at the top these are like 2 tiles kind of thing. So when we say a slide jump is 3 tiles high, then the corner that I have to zip off of is 3 tiles from the ground. Coming up is vanilla. You'll be using the attack trade badge and the lucky 7 badge for this fight, so here we go. There we go. That was pretty bad because I lost a lot of time trying to do that zip. But let me explain a little bit about badges now. Badges are optional equips. Like the potions I keep getting, like health up and attack up, all that. Those are permanent stat upgrades. Badges are optional. We can choose to put them on or not. And most of them we won't put on. We still need to pick them up because they are items. But they got 2 badges during that segment, Attack Trade and Lucky 7. Attack Trade is great, it trades some of your defense for attack. We don't really care about defense, we just want to go fast. Damage is the way to go. And Lucky 7 is a bit peculiar, I'll talk about it after this boss fight. Alright, this is a glitch called the aerial glitch. Normally right now this boss should be in the air, but because we did an up drill as she was jumping up, she stays grounded. You can do that on a variety of bosses, which is great for us because when a boss is in the air, they're a little hard to hit. We don't want that. So Lucky 7 used to be a pretty boring badge. Basically every 7th hit would have a chance to be stronger. Now it does a bit more than that. On your 7th hit on a boss, your hit will do a minimum of 77 damage. On your 777th hit on a boss, your hit will do a minimum of on your 77th hit on the boss, your hit will do a minimum of 777 damage, and so on. That's a whole lot more damage than we can do right now. So when we reach the 77th hit on a boss, we will do a lot of damage to them, which is perfect. Everything we could want. Whoops. Slide jump, please. Here's a bit of fancy movement to get up here. Normally you're not supposed to be here before you have air dash, which we did just pick up, but mostly double jump, which we don't have. Air dash is a fantastic movement option right now. We're going back to town to level it up right now, but as soon as it gets to level 3, we will not be slide jumping everywhere. We will be air dashing everywhere now. So going back to town, we need to buy a Cocoa Bomb off of Cocoa and get air dash level 3, which we're doing right now. And here's Cocoa. So Cocoa Bombs are basically just a stronger amulet, but you're not invincible while using it. They have a variety of use for us. This one in particular will be used for an upcoming boss. Here is a mini boss, but after that is Alias 2. notoriously hard boss, has 2 phases, and is very, very RNG dependent. So let's see if I can get a good one. Did not get a good one, I think. Yep. Using boost is just not good. You want to avoid that as much as possible. Yeah, so that was pretty bad RNG. Alright, now we're headed off the system interior, which is, without question, one of the hardest areas in the game, because of a particular trick. We've been preparing for this trick very secretly, all the way up until now. This is the reason we need bunny roll, this is the reason we need wall jump. Couldn't get the block club there. I'll explain what it is when I get it. So Cyber Flower early is the trick. I'll be spending a bit explaining it. First off, mini boss. What I'm doing here is I'm opening up my load menu and setting it past the 4th position, and this tricks the game variables into thinking that I have defeated a whole lot of mini bosses in this mini boss fight. And basically the next mini boss just, it's good, you get to go. So now, Cyber Flower early. I'll try to explain it a bit, but first off, we have to get this made kind of off to the left here, under that little hole that we opened up earlier. This seems like a pretty okay position, I'm not sure. Is that good enough? Yes it is! Alright, that's great. So that's a very, very hard trick. If you fail it, you have to spend a lot of time setting up again. But basically, you bring her over to that hole that you opened up, and then she has to do, she has 2 attacks that she can do, that little robot made. One's a low jump, and one's a high jump. You want the high jump. And when she does that, you can jump up with her if you have invulnerability frames. And, oops. There we go. And then a zip right there, by the way. You can jump up with her and do a super bounce, which I talked about earlier briefly. And then you can angle it at the top and use the extra wall jumps that we bought with wall jump level 2 to make it all the way up to the Cyber Flower. What is the Cyber Flower? Well, there's an area in this game called System Interior 2. Very, you know, System Interior 2 or whatever. But it's an area that you get access to in Chapter 7. And for us, it has only 2 uses. It's a long platforming area. It only has 2 uses for us. One, I got hit by that, didn't want to get hit. We needed to open the library, which is the final area in the game. Basically, once you beat it, you get to enter Chapter 8 in a casual playthrough. And in Chapter 8, you can open up the library, which is where the final boss is. There's a whole bunch of glitches you can use to just completely bypass that and open up the library without even ever entering Chapter 8. Oops. First off though, no. Here's a boss skip. I'll explain boss skips later, for now we're still inside the flower area. So, the second thing we need from Chapter 7 is the Cyber Flower. It's a small item at the end of chapter of the System Interior 2. I'm mumbling on my words right now. We need it because, well, it's an item, 100% items. But with Cyber Flower early, we can actually get that, which lets us completely skip System Interior 2, which is a solid, like, at least 5 minutes of time save. We'll be doing, whoops, get that item. We'll be doing the other glitch to unlock the library later on. For now, here's some more item collection and finding some bosses. Here's Weaken. This is a pretty good badge. Reduces iframes on bosses, and also gives us extra damage on bosses that are not in hit stun. Alright, as for boss skips, I'll actually leave that for later on when we reach a section with more boss skips to properly explain how boss skips work. But basically, we zip in, we walk out, and the boss is done. This is a semi-solid platform skip. Clip, not skip. The technical reasons are a bit too complicated to explain, but if you do a down drill on a really, really low jump right above a platform, you can actually go through it. There's a couple ways to do that. The way I used was to do, where was this again? Wait. There we go. I was getting confused there. The way I used there was to buffer a down drill after a wall launch. Whoops, gotta get frame cancel. Frame cancel is another great badge. I'll explain what it does later when I actually put it on. Here's Ashery 2, a very, very random boss. Hopefully she is kind to us. That's not being kind to us. We want to use the Cocoa Bomb right here. Oops, right here. To skip the defense boost phase as much as possible. We did a pretty poor job there. If you do it just right, you can actually completely skip the defense boost phase. Ashery 2 has a very notorious defense boost phase. It starts pretty early on and goes on for quite a long while. So we need that Cocoa Bomb to just skip as much of it as possible, which ideally is all of it. So here's a bit more item collection. The reason you can't see right now is because we do not have the light orb. Sadly for you, it doesn't actually do anything for me. It just gives like a kind of flashlight effect. We're getting that warp, just passing under it. We will not be getting every item in this area right away. We'll be coming back here later. For now, we want to go fight Saya. Saya's a bit of a hard boss, so I will shut up for a second while I fight her. That was a great Saya fight. Alright, so we did the same thing as we did in the start of Vanilla. I didn't ever explain what that was. What that is badge glitch. When you put on badges at the very start of a boss fight, you have 5 seconds to put on badges at the start of a boss fight. It increases the boss's levels accordingly, but it does not increase their current HP. It does increase their max HP, but it does not actually increase their current HP. So we can have the benefits of the badges without, like, the extra levels for a single boss. And what we put on was Weaken, which I explained earlier, and Frame Cancel. Frame Cancel used to be a pretty boring badge, very, like, utility. However, thanks to a more recent update, it was turned into a speedrunning powerhouse. It basically makes all of your main combo attack animations like twice as fast. And I think you can connect the dots there, but going twice as fast while attacking is going faster. We want it. So now we're actually done fighting bosses for a little bit. We're just gonna go and collect some items. The goal of this item collection trip is to get the fire orb. We're just taking a really long path, getting a bunch of items on our way to the almighty fire orb. I'll explain exactly what it does when we get it, but right now all you need to know is that it is very strong, and I love it. Alright. In case you were getting tired of these dark screens, here's the light orb. No more darkness. Also, this is a good place to check my item percentage, so I know I'm on the right item percent. And what do you know? I am on the right item percent. That means I have not missed an item so far. That's always the scariest thing with these runs, missing an item. We'll be paying. Oh, I never explained eggs. Whoops. Eggs are not required for 100%. They do not affect item percentage. But they do give us a tiny bit of money when we collect them. And who will ever say no to free money? Especially in this category where we need to buy a lot of things to become the casual powerhouse that we really want to be. Getting a whole bunch of potions. We don't really care about any of these. We just need to get them. The only really important potion is the attack up potion. Because attack, or damage, good. I never really explained boost attacks either. So you see above ribbon, it's hard to see because I'm moving fast, but there's two bars. One of them is the mana bar, which lets us dictate how much, if we can use charge shots or not, and I want you. I'll explain boost later. Here's a bit of a shopping trip. We need the strange box from Shara, which we just picked up, and another Cocoa Bomb from, well, Coco. And while we're at it, we're gonna go take a little detour and go clear an area out, the Rabi-Ribi ravine. And to start off, we will be fighting the boss first, not getting the items. Here's chocolate. And that was Chocolate. Great fight. Chocolate has a lot of very annoying attacks where she just jumps up or teleports away, and you can't really hit her a whole lot, and get back down there. This is the side chapter. There's not a whole lot to say, it's a bit of like an intermission. But Chocolate has a lot of very annoying attacks where she either jumps up and stays in the air for a long time, or she warps away, or she starts recovering health. And we don't want any of that, so we just not even let her attack once. We just pin her to the corner and deal with her there. And so while we're here, we will just get every single item in here. And never come back here again. This jump is a bit annoying, and I got it first try. Awesome. Never mind, I used an amulet. That would have been great. That's a very annoying slide jump to get. If you're too far, then you fall off and you don't get the slide jump. If you're too close, then you bonk on the ceiling and you don't jump in the hole. I'm gonna try to slow down on the talking. My voice is starting to hurt a little bit. Not my voice, my vocal cords. This is the Potato Guardian. He is a Potato Guardian because he is a potato and he guards the mana up. Goodbye, Potato Guardian. Alright, detour done, back to our path to Fire Orb. The whole reason we really wanted that detour is for the Cocoa Bomb. Because there's a boss coming up right about now in this little room over here. And on easier difficulties, which we are on casual, it dies instantly to a Cocoa Bomb. So, yeah, we definitely want that. Alright. So, the Fire Orb is in this area. We're finally here. Just gonna have to get some stuff along the way. So, there's this egg. And this pack up over here. And now we have the Fire Orb. The Fire Orb is a beautiful item. It has two purposes. One, it opens up ice blocks in the overworld, which can sometimes hide items. Well, one in particular hides items. And well, you kind of need those. But its second purpose is in battle. When you're all out of SP, which is that second bar below Arena, little fire orbs will come around us and do a ton of damage to enemies. Bosses, really. It's not that strong until you upgrade to level 3, so we'll be doing that as soon as we really start needing the Fire Orb. Which isn't for a while, but get excited. Once that thing gets going, things are going down. So for now, we're back in Evernight. Just gotta clear out all the items here before we can move on. And that was the last item. So now we're gonna go to Aurora Palace, where Nieve waits for us. And a bunch of items. Aurora Palace is the #1 reason we actually wanted the Fire Orb. Because there's an item in there guarded by an ice block. So if we don't have the Fire Orb before we go in there, then we need to make 2 trips. And well, that's kind of annoying. Here's a little neat thing. If you let your Carrot Bomb bounce once off the ledge, before it falls onto another screen, it will actually work on the next screen. If you just let it fall down without it bouncing, it will not work. So there's not a whole lot to explain here. We're just going around collecting items. Oops. I guess I can talk a bit about Nieve. Nieve is a bit of an annoying boss. We will be doing very specific attacks on her, because she has a lot of HP thresholds for her regular attacks. All bosses can kind of work. Basically, they do specific attacks at specific HP percentages, and Nieve is kind of like the #1 culprit of that. She has a lot of HP percentages for specific attacks, so we want to stop attacking at very specific moments to get the right attacks that we want, to get as much damage in. If the fight goes well, you won't see a damn thing. I can't swear. If the fight goes well, you won't see a thing. Here we go. I've actually never seen that first attack, so yeah, this is an example of a pretty bad fight. However, we do want this attack. Yeah, that was pretty bad. I think I might have forgotten an item somewhere. Not sure where. Oh well. Oh yeah, the first attack that we saw there is not normally the first attack that you should get. I think I messed up the HP threshold there. Get that egg. I'll just dance around it. So we got the wrong first attack, and that led to a downward spiral. But thankfully, worth it. So from Nieve, we get the water orb. You can consider it like the gravity suit in Metroid games. If we were to go in here without the water orb, we would be very slow and sluggish, and this would just be a bad time all around. It's been a while, so here's another zip for you guys. You get it? There we go. But now, with the water orb, we are fast, we jump high, and basically, being underwater is just a breeze and pleasant. We'll be getting every single item underwater before we leave, so we never have to come back here again. And I'm going to try to do a really cool zip right here. Let's see if I can get it. Nope. Oh, I nearly got it. You need to amulet at the end of that. There we go. Yeah, that's a bit of a weird zip. Sometimes zips can behave in weird ways. That one particular zip, that's not really a gold, but let's pretend it is. Anyway, some particular zips require you to do specific things at the end for it to work properly. In this case, sometimes if you don't amulet at the end of that zip, you will just get pushed back out where you started. Which is why we kind of dropped it from the route, but recently I decided to pick it back up. Because, well, man, it's cool. Oops, I am actually out of amulets, so I can't take the path again. Alright. Oh, I didn't mention, but we did a boss skip. And this is a good time to talk about boss skips, because we just did one, and there's another one coming up. The main way of doing boss skips in this game is, well, first off we need to talk about how the game actually works for beating bosses. The moment you enter a boss, that boss is marked as defeated in the game files. in the game memory, really. And in a casual playthrough, that doesn't really matter, because if you die during the boss, you have to reload your previous save, so the game variables get reset. It's not a big deal, but if you enter a boss fight and you just kind of leave if you can, then that boss is marked as defeated even though you never really fought it. So that's the basis behind boss skips. You just enter a boss and then exit. And normally you can't do that because there's barriers set up, invisible walls and all that. But when you zip in, you can be in places where you're not supposed to be fighting a boss. So sometimes the barriers just aren't there. There's no invisible wall. And you can just kind of walk out, and the boss is marked as defeated. So we did that with Cena. We entered the arena with a zip. Here's a bunch of money. And we're going to do the same here with Kochi 3. Zip in, go out, and then zip through the invisible wall. And that's that. And so now we're headed to Nixie. But first, we need to make a little detour. There's an area very early on in the game called UPRPRC Base. We don't need to go there early on, because we can just do some cool jumps to get the Rabi slippers. But there's an item in here that we want. So we're coming back here much later to get the item, and also to perform the other glitch I talked about. The one that opens up the library. Because that's very important. Here's the item, and then right here, past this block, is the room of the final boss. Well, the casual room of the final boss. And normally you get access to this in Chapter 8. But, we can just kind of zip into there. Trigger the cutscene because it's always active. And then do another zip to get out of there because the path is still blocked and you can't zip left. You can only zip right. And then we can trigger this cutscene afterwards, because we triggered the other cutscene in the room. And so now the library is open. That's it. And sadly, that does not mean we can go fight the final boss, because there are 2 requirements to enter the library, which is the final area of the game, because I didn't mention. 1, we must have all the other bosses in this game recruited, and second off, well, the library must be open. So now the library is open, but we can't get in there yet. Let's just do the rest of the game first, we'll come back to it later. And I can look at my item count again here, and I did not miss a single item. That's good. Coming up is another really cool boss skip because it doesn't involve the zips actually. You can just kind of go between a wall and an autosave trigger to refresh your double jump, because the developer is really kind. Well, that's actually patched out. Now, if you're on the most recent version and you try to double jump after reloading an autosave, you won't be able to. But the developer of this game is very kind and left in an option which just kind of turns on all the bugs again. So we can turn on that option, and basically we can go between an invisible wall off screen and the autosave trigger to refresh our double jump and just keep going higher and higher and go so high that we can go above the boss trigger. Don't wall jump, please. I missed an item. Let me go get it right now. Oopsie. This item's kind of easy to forget. It's just like off in this own little corner here. Alright, so now we're going back to town, because now we've met the requirements to spawn the second fight of Cena 2. But first, a bit of shopping. So there we got some attack ups, we leveled up the Fire Orb, and we leveled up the Charge Ring. The Fire Orb is very important, because, well, now we can just destroy enemies. And now I want to get a buff from Nieve, give defense down. So now when I hit an enemy, there's a chance that we'll get the defense down buff, which is very important for this upcoming fight, if we want to do it fast. So I'm going to shut up a little bit. There we go. There we go. That was bad because I forgot an item, but no big deal. So, what I did there is that boss normally is an endurance fight. You can't actually hit the boss, it has 100% defense. But with give defense down, you can actually reduce 100% to 75%, which lets us do damage. And that boss doesn't actually have a lot of HP, so we can just tear through her with Fire Orb. And I just did a boss skip there by going above the map. I skipped Lilith 1, however I need to fight Lilith 2, which is after this really long auto-scroller section. So if you want to get some popcorn at home, drink, I could really use a drink right now. Stay hydrated, people. Yep. So we also bought Charge Ring level 3 in the shop. Upgrading the Charge Ring makes Ribbon charge up faster. And as you can see, right now it takes about a second to reach the maximum double charge, which is insane, but that's sped up a little bit because we're in a flying segment right now, and Ribbon charges faster in flying segments. Normally it'll probably take about 2 seconds still, but it is much faster than before, which is great because a double charge is actually very, very powerful. Not much to say around here. It is, after all, just a quick auto-scroller. We're using the yellow beam because it has like a massive shotgun spread, but also because while we're flying for some reason, that massive shotgun spread, every single hit of that shotgun spread will hit the boss. So yellow magic is just perfect for flying segments. And it's time for the boss now. Also, I never explained boost earlier. Boost are just basically mega attacks by Ribbon. They change depending on the magic you use, and you need boost meter to fill it up. Anyway, give defense down, and then just destroy her using yellow magic. Like that. Alright, so here's our final bit of item collection before we go finish off the main game. Beach and Pyramid. And the first thing we do in Pyramid is zip to the boss. If I can do it. If I can do it, There we go. Here's Pandora. I kind of feel bad for Pandora now. She just goes down extremely quickly with our new upgrades. She didn't used to be this fast, but now she just gets decimated. Alright, so now we're going to collect everything in the pyramid, and then we can go finish off the main game and move on to the post game. Because, yeah, this game has a post game. And you do need to beat the post game to get 100%. So in a way, it's kind of still the main game. Don't really know why it's called the post game, but there's a cool zip coming up. It's called the Armored Zip. Basically, you get damage boosted between 2 blocks and then up into a wall, and you go flying through the right, and you collect an item while you do it too. It's really cool. Coming up right about now. So beat this guy. Don't trigger the lamp, and I messed it up. Let's just go. I hate to do this, but it'll be faster to just kind of go. Normally we would have zipped all the way past this room, past that one room that I passed by. We would have ended up like right here. You have to jump in the air at the very... not a very specific timing, I just messed it up there. Hold on, that block didn't blow up, but I blew up the blocks behind it? That's weird. I've definitely never seen that. Here's another item, and one more item before we go finish up the main game. Right here. Back to town, and off to chapter 5, the final main game chapter. So this is really cool. This is just basically a short intermission with a couple of cool bosses, and then the credits. There's also a really cool skip 2 phases of the final boss out of 3. Which is nuts. First off, this is actually the hospital. If you were in the story mode, you would recognize this. In the story mode, you start here, but in speedrun mode, you skip the pre-prologue kind of thing. Alright, here's me a real hard boss fight, so I will shut up. Alright, amulet first. Messed up a little bit there, forgot the amulet before my second super carrot, which I didn't talk about, but I will talk about during the credits. First up, here's Noah's skip. Noah being the final boss of the main game. So first off, we gotta get Giant. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I missed. Let's try again. So get Giant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, up, dash, amulet. There we go. So, no skip is a very weird skip that not a lot of us can explain. In fact, none of us can explain why it works, really. We can just say what causes it. Basically, if you at the very end of a giant buff, if you up drill and then you do an air dash, manual whip, or both, well, like I did. I'm kind of finding this, so I can't talk much. There we go. You do, and you time it. You gotta time it. It's a bit of a tight timing, but you basically at the end of a giant buff, you up drill, air dash, amulet, or air dash and amulet, and then as you fall, you will clip into the ground and then zip right. And if you do it just right, you can end up in the area where Noah 3 is actually supposed to spawn, and just trigger her, which skips the rest of Phase 1, and, well, the entirety of Phase 2. Please let me talk to you, please let me talk to you, please. Why can I not talk to you? Not Nieve's fault this time, the little 10 member in front of her. Alright, so I want give defense down and attack up for this upcoming boss, Rumi. Rumi is probably one of the second longest boss in this whole game, waiting for you at the end of the boss rush that we did earlier. The reason we don't do her at the end of the boss rush is when you finish her, you actually enter Chapter 7. And entering Chapter 7 increases enemy levels by a whole bunch and all that bad stuff that you don't want to deal with early on. So we just get the warp and then come back here later on. There we go. So the goal here is to not let her attack even once, which is a little difficult because after every single flying segment, she puts on a 99 reflect. Every time we do more than 99 damage while that buff is on, all our damage will get reflected back to us, and we have a lot less HP than she does, so we will fall down to 1 HP very, very quickly. Like that. Sometimes it's necessary, but we want to try to avoid it as much as possible. This is where our recovery items from earlier come in handy. And the reason why we gotta get her down to 1 HP before she attacks is, while she's attacking, she cannot jump up. So like that. And so now if she won't attack, she'll just immediately jump up. Wait for 99 reflect to go away, and then we can start using the shotgun again. Oh, we got lucky there, and we got an aerial shotgun glitch, I don't know what to call it. Basically, if you get lucky with the shotgun, sometimes it'll just double the damage for some reason. It's very rare, we don't understand why it happens, but sometimes you'll just double your damage. It's fantastic when it happens. Moving seems to be like a bit of a factor. If you're standing still, it usually doesn't happen. Like there, I was moving a little bit. And that was Rumi. At the end of the fight, we reached 777 hits, which, if you remember from Lucky 7, deals 7,777 damage to her, which is great because that completely deletes her final phase. And so now we're in Chapter 7, but we're going to do another Chapter 6 thing, which is Miriam and Hall of Memories. This is normally the first thing you should do when you enter Chapter 6 in a regular playthrough, beating the Hall Memories will open up boss rush and so on. But we actually won the buffs for Rumi, because Rumi is this long hard fight. With either a high risk of time loss or perhaps just death if you mess up hard enough. Whereas Hollow Memories is just this long area. You kind of like revisit small sections of every area you've been to in the game. All the enemies here are worth a ton of money, so we'll try to kill a bunch. And also just kind of blaze through everything. There's also not a lot to go and say here. Just go and use your double charge for magic to defeat a bunch of enemies. That's bad. Oh, starter, really? Alright, I got a terrible debuff. The yellow magic girls have a tendency, well, if you get hit by one of their attacks, you can get numb, which just makes you stutter everywhere. It's totally not the worst thing in the game. Angle it here will kind of defeat every enemy in the room and give a bunch of money. Definitely want to do that. Oh, good luck, Coco. I could try to explain what that I did there with Coco, but community memes are not really great to explain. Wow, I totally messed up that room. Alright, and now we are through Hollow Memories. Time for the greatest boss fight in the game, Miriam. Please enjoy this magnificent boss strat. I messed it up a little bit, but alright, we're good. Saved. Normally, she would just get perfectly stuck in the corner right off the bat, but I messed up my strat a little bit. Alright, so now there's just a tiny bit of item collection left before we can go and enter the library. So, we just gotta get rid of that. We actually keep this for the very end of the run because the first time we come here, we don't have the water orb. And well, as I said earlier, no water orb means movement in water is slow and sluggish. we definitely want to try to avoid that as much as possible. Besides, it's a little convenient to grab it at the very end, because, I should do this. An interesting property of Carrot Shooter is that the carrots dropped by charge shots and boost actually work like real carrot bombs. So you can actually drop carrot bombs in places you normally couldn't using the boost, which avoids having to go all the way around. Just gotta wrap up the item collection in Starting Forest, and we will be on our way to the final boss before we can access the final boss. Because, as you can see at the top, we're at 21 town members. We need 23 before we can access Irisu, which is the final boss, and the library and such a thing I've been talking about this whole time. Using another boost here, this actually skips a mini boss fight. The more you know. Right, here's our Ronnie skip. Get rid of all the enemies in here. And jump up here. And that was it, that was our Ronnie skip. Here's the Ironic Arena, and trigger the wrong way. So now we're at 22 town members. Our Ronnie skip is probably one of the easiest boss skips in the game. There are many, many different ways to do it, none of them involving any sort of glitches. What I did there was not a glitch, I just jumped up the hole. Alright, here we're going to take off Rabi slippers so we can do 2 semi-solid platform clips. That was too much. There we go. Basically, if you have Rabi slippers on, even if you try to boss buffer on the first frame, you won't be able to. So there, we skip the entirety of this Plurkwood area. This boss fight is a bit intensive, so... can't talk during it much. There we go. So these platformers just lead straight to the boss, but you also can't trigger the boss the wrong way, or else you're just stuck. So you have to jump over the boss trigger, and then we can fight her the right way. And that skips the entirety of an area called Plurkwood, which is a completely optional area, except for the fact that there's an item that you get after defeating the boss. Alright, so we bought the 4 items in the shop there. We do need those items, they are required. All 4 of those items are worth 1% on the item counter. Now we have to find KK Bunny. Oh, there she is. You have to talk to KK Bunny to actually recruit her. Finding her is not enough. So now we're at 23 and we are ready for a visit to Irisu. We bought a Cocoa Bomb. We'll get 3 town buffs right now. The first one, the most important one, Nieve. Second one, Sheena for attack up. Third one, Kotri. And they are all jumbled together, but I don't need any of them, thank God. Sheena and Kotri. Kotri gives Amulet Cut. Using an amulet only takes 75% of an amulet charge now. Which is great. More amulets for everyone. And now we just need to clear all the items in this area, which is right at the entrance of the library. And then we can go. get the last items in the library, and fight the final boss. I guess I can actually already start talking about the final boss because of the complexity of it. Irisu is the longest boss in the game by far. She has 4 phases, but the way she works is similar to Rumi, except that Rumi cannot switch phases during an attack. Irisu cannot switch phases during an attacking cycle. So when she attacks, she has like attack cycles, which is like multiple attacks in a row. And until she reaches the end of that cycle, she will not transition to the next phase. So that really sucks. You want to avoid as much of that as possible. Like phase 3, the entirety of phase 3 is just one big attack cycle. So if you don't bring her down to phase 4 at the start of phase 3, then you have to sit there for 5 minutes while she wastes all her attack on you. First up, a little bit of another carrot shooter trick. Skip a bit of a platforming segment there and get this item. We don't really care about standing on spikes. They do a bit of damage, but not enough for us to really care about it. We'll also be doing something very special for the final boss. We'll be fighting her in the wrong arena. Normally you enter the final boss from the right, but we will be zipping to her and fighting her from the left, because it's faster, in terms of like movement. Because we can just go pick up the final item in this area here, and immediately just zip straight to the final boss. Using a 5-tile zip right here if I can get it. It's a bit of a hard one. Alright, I was too far away there. That wouldn't work. That second frame again. There's first frame. There we go. So here's the final boss Irisu. So our goal right now is to bring her down to right this amount. So that was phase 1. Each 10 health bars for her, like health, well you can see like at the bottom right, she has 30 health bars for me. So the first 10 health bars are phase 1, the second 10, phase 2, third 10, phase 3, and then the final phase is special. So our goal is to bring her to phase 2 HP before she even goes to the background. Otherwise she starts a bit of like a long section of just a whole bunch of attacks that we don't want to deal with. They're long and take a bit of time. So here, that's the start of phase 2. Phase 2 is a bit more lenient than the other ones. Near the start of phase 2, there's basically no attacking cycle. Bit of a weird concept, but if at any time during those first 2 attacks you bring her down to low HP, well phase 3 HP, then she will just go to phase 3 immediately. After that she does start having a bit of attack cycles and whatnot. Here, there's actually, you can't see it, but because we're in the wrong arena, there's actually like a healing spot right here. Doing a bit of damage there. You won't get to see too much of it, but Irisu in phase 3 actually has 300 Revenge, which is kind of like 99 Reflect, but a bit cooler. If you do above 300 damage to her in a single hit, you will get the buff Sudden Death for a few seconds. Sudden Death basically makes all attacks do 4,444 damage to you. So now we have to do a ton of damage. Here's the Cocoa Bomb from earlier. And so now we can just kick back, relax. We're using the yellow beam here to charge up our boost meter faster, because we want boost for this. This is the one utility of the Chaos Rod, or the purple magic. So here's the endurance part of this fight, phase 4. While she's here, you can't actually hurt her in any way, except if you use purple magic, you can actually put Cursed on the boss. And if you take damage while the boss has Cursed, the boss will also take damage. This is the only way to do damage to her in this phase, although she just naturally loses HP as well. This is also why we bought a bunch of donuts. And donuts refill our boost meter to its maximum, well, to its maximum. They also give us a bit of health, but the one reason we want them is for the maximum boost meter. Okay, hit me. So there's not much to say. I guess I can just talk about the fact that I love this game and this speed game, really. This is a great game even casually. Like, there's a lot of difficulties, there's a lot of content, there's DLC, there's boss rush, speedrun mode, a slew of achievements. Basically, this is an absolute bang for your buck, so go buy it if you want it, or if this looks even remotely interesting to you. There's even online multiplayer coming soon. Like, what else do you need? And as a speed game, it's wonderful. There's so many amazing tricks. Your custom mapping, there's custom maps for this game. There's so much cool stuff. And Unlevel the speed game, this is... the developer has been very kind to us to, like, just patch out the glitches but leave them in for us in like a secret option. So this is a great speed game as well. And time is when I finish picking up this item right here. Oop. And that's it. Rabi-Ribi 100%. Not a great run, but I mean honestly, it's really hard to play this while you're talking. This game demands a lot of focus. Doing two things at once, not necessarily the greatest. Yeah, I hope this gets in. Thank you for watching.